Earlier this morning, Fire Emblem Engage released its Wave 4 DLC trailer, and today we analyze everything there is to see in this 2-minute and 20-second video. Afterwards, I'll give my own opinion on everything and what I'm looking forward to, so let's get started immediately. At 5 seconds, the trailer properly begins with a shot of someone's grave, which is shortly confirmed to be Elyos. Then, as we're shown a few familiar locales of Lythos and a ruined Somniel, the trailer introduces both Nell and Nil, the new DLC characters of this episode.
It is such a joy to see you reborn.
Reborn?
Who are happy to see Elyos reborn, much to his confusion, as both had been praying for help while defending their version of Lythos Castle, and by this point, it's become clear this is a completely different version of Elyos to the one from the main game. At 23 seconds, both Nell and Nil are fell dragons from this parallel Elyos, and unlike Elyos and Vale, Nell can assume her dragon form. They can also fight using normal weapons, with Nil using Revanche and Nell wielding Représailles to fight corrupted wolves, which incidentally both weapons tease in their descriptions they come from another world back when they were added in Wave 3.
There are 7 bracelets in total.
Where are the other 4?
Each of the 4 nations of Elyos possesses one.
And similar to the main campaign, the Fell twins embark on a journey along with Elyos to recover all 7 of them. According to Fire Emblem's Japanese Twitter, in this version of Elyos, Lumera sacrificed her life to sealing Sombron, but her successor, Elyos, had already died by then, and with no divine dragon to guide the continent, Elyos fell in a state of a cold war, and their leaders lost their virtues, barely keeping each other in check. Also, the reason our main Elyos gets involved in the side story is because someone's voice guides and asks him to help this world. Back at the trailer at 38 seconds, we're shown a sneak peek of how different this version of Elyos' royalty is, with Selene being harsher and cold, Alchrist berating his brother Diamant for being useless and calling him pathetic, and Alfred outright approving an invasion in Firene's name.
If they must suffer in order for our people to live, so be it.
Or must I do everything for you, my pathetic excuse for a brother?
I will never hand over Solm's bracelet.
Consider the invasion approved.
Then at 51 seconds, the trailer shows one of the first maps of this DLC episode, where the goal is to defeat both Firene's royals. Marin is shown to be playable and with Celica's ring as she attacks Selene, while Elyos attacks an Alfred who is equipping Dark Hector's bracelet and using Wolf Beal. Nell tells Elyos that they may need to cross blades with those they consider their allies, which is brow-raising for sure. As we see later, the main game ring-wielding allies are fighting their bracelet-wielding alternate universe counterparts, but the jury is out on how these two worlds will clash. More on this later though. At 1 minute, palette swaps of the Hounds, now named the Winds except for Mavier, curiously appear, and surprise, they're now allies: Zelestia, Gregory, and Madeline.
You must be so tired after that long trek.
Stop! Please! Don't hurt me!
I was never snot-nosed.
Zelestia comes off as kind and motherly, probably foregoing her counterpart's manipulative behavior. Gregory seems the complete opposite of Gris, who doesn't want to be hurt anymore, and per the trend, Madeline claims not to be a snot-nosed brat. Mavier, perhaps due to him being playable in the main game, doesn't have the palette and name change. Despite Selene and Alfred's previous antagonism just moments before, both Selene and Frem are allies in this scene, which may seem weird but may have more to do with how the Xenologue is structured. More on this later. Anyways, in the next scene, Tiki has a role in this campaign itself, and unlike previous Dark Emblems, she talks. Hortensia is then seen fighting herself, and she's equipped with Emblem Leaf. Dark Hector is equipped to Hortensia. Fogado with Micaiah is fighting Fogado with Dark Veronica, which makes me suspect if all the parallel world stuff the bracelets talked about in the random bond conversations is finally going to have actual relevance here.
Restraint has been such a boon, Hector. Would you care to converse a little?
Sure. I'd like to learn a bit more about you, too. You're much gentler than the Selene I knew.
It's here where I'm curious as to how these two versions of one another will clash. Is it going to be similar to Cindered Shadows, where there's a critical moment where the paths diverge in the main story that breaks to the alternate story? We'll see. Alchrist is a big Elyos doubter, and he's aggressively opposed to their claim of being the divine dragon. We get dialogue between Ivy and Nell, who goes on to explain that nearly all fell dragon children lose their twin siblings as they mature. Then we see that Nell transforms in combat into a fell dragon. Perhaps Nell's survival here is miraculous and unexpected. Nell would be the successful twin as she can transform and contribute to the war in a meaningful way, while Nell cannot.
I, as you know, am a failure.
The trailer ends with an abrupt cut-in of a character being stabbed and presumably killed. I don't know whose voice this is, but what do you think? Diamant, Alir?
I don't understand. We gave you what you wanted.
Some extra information about the trailer reveals that, like Cindered Shadows, upon its completion, new characters and supports are unlocked for the main story, as well as new DLC classes like Enchanter and Mage Cannoneer. It's here where I'm curious as to how these two versions of characters will clash. Is it going to be similar to Cindered Shadows, where there's a critical moment where the paths diverge in the main story that breaks the alternate story? It could be much less complicated though. The Xenologue is stated to function like this. In the Fell Xenologue, allies will enter each map with a fixed level, class, and inventory depending on the map. However, equipped emblems, support relationships, and bond rings from the main game will be retained. It may function as a portal/unique area of sorts that can be visited to and from, like the Divine Paralogs. The world itself is a mirror of normal Elyos, which could also explain why the biomes being different, like Solm being very wintry, and Virene being way more aggressive, like Brodia. Additionally, it could be that because things like emblem and bond rings and supports carry over, there's not much consideration for how normal Elyos characters and rings will clash with the Xenologue versions besides the acknowledgements of mirror matches happening. As if normal Celine fought Xenologue Celine, she'd say something like, "I can't believe this is who I am in this world," or something.
We have no choice but to square off cutie versus cutie.
The last thing you see will be your own handsome face.
This would also more seamlessly incorporate Nil, Nell, and the Winds too into the main game. The fact that permadeath isn't a thing also makes it seem like it won't be its own entity like Cindered Shadows was. I am also quite excited for Zelestia, Gregory, and Madeline being playable in the main campaign too. Internal data shows them with Bond conversation voice lines, so I really hope they add supports for them and unique battle log versus their Hounder parts to boot. This would also explain why Mavier is unchanged as he's already playable. Although, the idea of Mavier having an identical twin from another universe would be fascinating. The one thing, writing-wise, I'm looking forward to is actually the new support conversations. Upon watching every single support in the game, the quality is good and enjoyable, and I'm a lot more confident in that than the story writing quality itself. I personally think the premise of alternate universe where characters are the exact opposite of who they were is very boring and unoriginal, and I already have little confidence in this team's writing ability to deliver anything not bottom tier in the series or memorable for this game. As usual, I have very high expectations of the gameplay. It parallels the structure of Cindered Shadows by quite a bit, and I loved the gameplay of that DLC, on top of the gameplay of Engage being stellar to begin with. If it can deliver 2 out of the 3 things here, it's a success in my book. That all being said, what do you all think of this DLC trailer? Are you excited for Wave 4? Are you excited for the characters, the story, the gameplay? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Deuces.